I cannot count the number of personal stories I've read online and even watched some on YouTube about people and their lives and their families. And it's sometimes amazing to see how much people share concerning their personal lives with the public, because these stories I've watched and these stories I've read are about people I may never meet and who don't even know I have read the stories about them. So for today's episode, we're going to be talking about telling stories about your family, whether it's through gossip, whether it's through writing a book, a memoir, or making a film, or whatever way you chose to share the stories. How can you share a story about people who really care about you and whom you care about without hurting their feelings? Because some of these stories are really touchy, they're really sensitive. So how do you share a story without being the bad guy, so to speak, or without making enemies with the people you love? Amongst all the personal essays I would like to share on this channel, I would like to start with this one because it's something that's very practical with the social media now, and advancement in technology has given people the ability to share stories in very different forms. People can make videos about themselves, they can write, they can share it in short text through Twitter or picture text through Instagram. Like that, so many ways people can share their stories today. And for today, I'm just going to look through Laurie Hertzel's personal essay on how to write a story, particularly if it relates to your family members, without making enemies, so to speak. So how will you write a story about your loved ones without making enemies? Is that even possible? The title of this essay is very peculiar, and that's what struck and that's what pulled me to the essay when I first saw it. And will they still love me when I'm done? And will they still love me when I'm done? When you're done saying these things about your family members, or making this film, or writing this Facebook or Instagram or Twitter posts about your family members, the stories and the struggles, will they still love you when you're done? Will they be happy you've shared something they may have considered sacred with the public? As Homo sapiens, we're generally more prone to stories. We love a good story. And sometimes it doesn't matter if it's comedy or a tragedy. Just the fact that it's a story is thrilling enough. Some people are more attracted to tragic stories and others are more attracted to comic stories, or both. Laurie Hertzel's essay gives a few tips to note when you're sharing a story about your family. Because family is very technical. You can lose your friends, you can lose your colleagues and everything, but once you lose your family, like, there's something about family that you just can't destroy. There's something that happens when you don't have like that base, those people you call your family. It's a very touchy topic when you have to share intimate information about your family and your loved ones with unknown people, whether and I don't know how some people get to do this. Sometimes I find it very fascinating, especially when I can't put my hand on the specific reason why they share the stories. Granted, these stories are important because when you share personal stories, especially if they are from very, very disturbing backgrounds, you get to encourage other people who have similar experiences to know that yes, you've been through this and you survived, if you did survive, and if you have other skills that you learned, or ways of coping throughout this experience, it may be very beneficial for others who are going through it in present or who may go through it in future. So stories are actually a learning form, in my opinion, if they are told well. So there are very many reasons why people tell stories, but it's also very important to know that some stories are more dangerous than others. And in her essay, Laurie Hertzel struck on the fact that you should be very cautious of the kind of stories we share. And this is not just for content creators. We as Homo sapien beings are all storytellers. Whether you're gossiping to a friend about what your sister did, or you're gossiping about what your brother did, or your father did, or your mother did, it's very important you should take note of these tips I'm about to share with you. And hopefully you can read the article for yourself to get more insight on how to share a story so that you don't poke your family in a bad place. You don't hurt people's feelings. And even if you do hurt their feelings, you should hurt their feelings genuinely. You shouldn't exaggerate what didn't happen or lie about what did happen. So these are just a few tips that I'm going to share and lessons I learned from reading this essay. And I hope you too can amend your story when next you're telling it. So the first lesson you have to take note of when you're trying to share a story, especially about your family, is that not everybody wants their information shared. There are people who are very private and they would rather die with their experiences than share it to the world. And sometimes, knowingly or unknowingly, our family members just get into our stories because they are our family. So when you're trying to share a story and you have a family member or members who are not comfortable with you sharing the story, it's important for you to have a talk about it. Yes, talk about it and find out if there's a way to go around it. Are there certain specific areas of the story they don't want you to share? And it's really good for you to respect people's opinions or find a level ground on how to share this story, especially if they are part of a major or minor part of the story. If they don't want to be part of the story, you can't force them into it. And if you're forcing them into it, you should be ready for the consequences, if any. So whatever you decide to do, share it or keep it. Just make sure you know that some people may not be very pleased hearing that their story has been shared, particularly to the world. It's different if you're sharing it with a couple of people, but if you're sharing it to a vast array of people who will make judgments and who you may never see and they may never see you, that's really something you have to think about for long and hard before you start putting names and characteristics of your family members into a story. The second lesson you have to learn when you're trying to share a story, particularly when you're writing a memoir about your life or somebody else you know, when you're writing a memoir, you have to be very empathetic. You have to be empathetic because we have all been somewhere. We're coming from somewhere. Nobody was born in know-it-all. Nobody was born perfect. We're all flawed. So sometimes when you're telling a story, just try to be a little bit more empathetic. Try to understand what that person was going through at that point in time, because it gives you more focus. It gives you a little bit of balance in your story. It makes you take every single aspect into consideration before drawing conclusions, and it makes your story more honest and more relatable. It doesn't make your story look bitter or angry or one-sided. And even the person who is part of the story may not be as mad when they see that you considered it fairly, particularly when it comes to unpleasant topics, very touchy topics. I'm not saying you should wash down what actually happened. Tell the truth, but tell the truth from an empathetic point of view and be very honest. Don't exaggerate what didn't happen, and don't lie about what did happen to make the viewers try to enjoy the story. If you're trying to write a true memoir or a true story, make sure that it's actually what it is, true. The third thing you should think about when you're trying to share a story or you're trying to share an experience or somebody else's experience is your intentions. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you sharing this story? Does it matter? And if it does matter, who does it matter to? Does it matter to you or does it matter to those out there? And how will it benefit the people out there? You know, some stories are just not worth sharing, especially if they're being shared with the aim of blackmailing, of shaming, of intimidating. Like, if the main reason for sharing that story isn't really to benefit any other person, then I don't see the need for the story to be shared. So always weigh your intentions and see if the story you're sharing it from a good point of view and to genuinely help people learn from the story. Also, you have to know which stories have to be shared and which stories don't have to be shared. It's not everything that you have to share. If your family and friends have the impression that you're the kind of person who doesn't keep their mouth shut, they won't tell you anything. We all have that friend or the family member who just doesn't know how to keep their mouth shut. You tell them something 1 minute and next minute every single person knows about it. Nobody wants to have that kind of person behind them. Like, be very trustworthy, that somebody can trust you to tell you something or share an experience with you, and trust that you're not going to take it to social media or take it to a publisher just to make money from it. You should know what's worth sharing and what's not. Don't take something that was told or shared with you from a genuine point of view or out of weakness and you try to make some money out of it, or you're doing it for selfish intentions. Like, some stories are not just worth telling. Just know what to share and what not to share, and you're going to save your relationships and your sanity as well, because people have been through lawsuits and they've been through broken family relationships just by sharing things that the family considered sacred to them, and they considered like their business. It's no other person's business, so they didn't see why this person took it upon themselves to share it with the whole wide world. So yes, you have to know what's shareable and what's not. In a social media infested world, it's very hard for us to decide what to share and what not to share, whether it's our personal lives or families or friends. But it's just important for you to take these points I've given you into consideration when next you want to share a story. Or you should read more of Laurie Hertzel's essay. She has a lot of points on how to share a story before you share your story. I'm going to put the link in the description box, and you can read that and learn how to better share a story when you're writing about family and loved ones. Thank you once again for hanging out with me on Books and Things with Joan. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please click on the subscription and click on the notification so that when next videos come up, you will be the first to know. Thank you once again, and I apologize for the late video for today. Life happens, and that's all I can say. Life happens, and I hope to keep a more smooth rhythm as we've done for the last month. And keep up. I'm going to be sharing more beautiful personal essays and lessons we can learn from these personal essays and books, so you better not miss the next episode. Thank you and have a great week. Bye.